All right. This is going to be a super controversial one today, and this is going to be the male equivalent of woman's hypergamy, otherwise known as polygyny. Now, some people might be very familiar with this, and when they hear this word, they like freak out and stuff. But I'm going to be talking about basic human nature, and I think it's important to confront things as they are rather than to ignore them. So, first off, what is polygyny? Now, you might have heard about it before, obviously, but this is where one man is attracted to four females, which back in the old days, if you didn't know, would usually mean four wives. However, this is no longer the case in modern society. Now, the thing is, even though this isn't the case in modern society, this does not mean that the underlying biology of what was basically occurring like tens of thousands of years ago or even thousands of years ago just suddenly changes overnight. And this does not mean that the attraction does not exist amongst multiple women, and men are still attracted to other women even if they do have a woman present with them, which is why you will obviously catch, if you've ever seen this before, examples of a man just staring at a woman's ass as she walks by, and other men notice that. They notice the guy and then they notice the ass too, and they're like, oh, that's pretty good, right? So this is sort of an example that it still does exist today, especially with how much women love to reveal themselves today as well. This system of attraction is no different than current primates. If we didn't already know this, by the way, as 50 to 70% of current primates practice polygyny. And by practicing polygamy, I don't necessarily mean just, hey, talking to other women. I mean literally mating with the other woman, while only 15 to 29% of primates are considered monogamous, and that's being generous, and 1 to 2% are polyandrous, which basically means one female and multiple males. So in most cases, it is going to be this top part right here, which is polygyny, 50 to 70%. And there's a really good chance you're going to be in this as well, including me, because that's just the way biology works. But in today's society, I do believe that polygyny exists, and we'll be getting into that because that's going to be pretty controversial. Now, the real question, though, is if this is true, then why do humans practice monogamy in today's day and age? Now, the reason is because polygyny is not practiced in current modern society, most likely due to a couple of reasons, three main reasons I would consider. First one is resource allocation. Now, most cannot afford multiple wives and the costs that come with it. So just having a pet, as a general rule, if you have a dog, it costs you money because you have to feed the dog. The same thing applies to women, or the same thing applies to whatever that exists in your life that you have to take care of, like taxes or something, or making more money or whatever. You have to pay more taxes, all right? So that's just basically the bottom line. Resource allocation, same sort of thing. You have more people in the house, you have to feed more. You have more kids, you have to feed more people, right? So this is sort of obvious. The second one is societal stability. Now, this one is where we're getting into a little bit of interesting territory because as of the modern era, certain pillars of what I believe to hold society together are collapsing, which is a really interesting thing. You should go check out that video if you're interested. It's under the Think for Yourself playlist, if I remember correctly. Now, when it comes to societal stability, males without females are often far more aggressive, and social instability is much more likely. And as we can tell in today's day and age, not only are men and women sort of and somewhat at war with each other, there is a ton of very violent and aggressive behavior today that what I would like to deem as meaningless in some sense. And this is also not just because of men not being able to attain women. This also has to do with the education system and families, basically. Actually, this originates from poor parenting and families, which is very sad. But once again, separate video. If you're interested, go check that out. The third reason why humans practice monogamy today is religion. Now, this is probably one of the biggest ones. I've made a video on this one as well. Religion plays a huge role in acting as a vector and a stabilization of society. And by a vector force, I mean something that shoots you in one direction, but it only amplifies it even more. I guess you could say it adds to the magnitude. This is sort of a physics thing. And the reason this is a big deal is because you can also be shot in the right direction or in the wrong direction. Or in this case, it's not right or wrong. It's like violence or the opposite of violence, pacifism, right? Turn the other cheek versus kill everybody who's next to me and who disagrees with me, right? And if we don't already know, by the way, there actually is one pseudo religion out there that sort of exists like that, and it's wokeness today, and it's kind of sick because somebody by the name of Charlie Kirk got shot for that exact reason. This is what I mean by acting sort of like a vector force. Wokeness in this case is the pseudo religion. Anyways, so religion once again plays a huge role in acting as a vector force and stabilization of society as a whole, and it plays a massive role in this instance. But old religious texts, just to give you an example, talk about jealousy, strife, and fighting happening because of polygamy. The funniest verse that I personally found was a Christian one, is Deuteronomy 17:17, old scripture if I remember correctly, warns against kings multiplying wives to avoid such corruption. And they basically mean that this jealousy and this strife and fighting occurs because of us having so many wives, or having multiple wives. The more wives, the more you have strife, fighting, and jealousy. So I found that sort of pretty interesting. Now, what exactly do men find attractive? Now, hopefully we already know this from experience or just looking at reality, but men value physical characteristics, and most especially when they're younger. Now, this varies from man to man on what's prioritized the most for that man, although the main three are face, butt, and breasts. Now, as time goes on and as the men do get older, they may value different traits a little bit more, such as being a bit more feminine and not acting like a man, as an example, or being able to override your subconscious as a female, because your subconscious will take over sometimes and it gets a little bit annoying to deal with. And that's just one thing as an example. Now, even though when time goes on and they do get older, they do still value physical characteristics quite a bit, especially when it comes to being lustful. Now, if you don't have any of these characteristics, then being feminine is your best bet if you want to attract a man who is higher status and demonstrating pre-selection far more than a man who is not. Now, you might say, is there any way to change these characteristics, for instance, face, butt, or breast? And there is, but it's actually mostly during adolescence. You can change it a little bit, more so facially, during adolescence, especially if you chew correctly and you chew. I'll get into that later. Anyways, physical characteristics are heavily shaped during adolescence. Check out the Optimal Health playlist one and the Real Nutrition Science playlist for details on how to not mess up your adolescence, or how to not mess up your kids' upbringing. Actually, that's basically the main reason why my channel exists in the first place. If you didn't know, the original reason behind my channel was to teach my kids everything that they would need to know before going out into the world, and not having to experience so many mistakes and stuff on their own, instead just to actually learn. So yeah, anyways, that's a really, really big one. Now, I was going to actually explain one quick thing before I get any further, and this is a little bit of details on chewing, what I was talking about before. So if you are a female and you are of adolescence, for instance, then when you are chewing, there is actually one really, really, really important thing that I cannot stress enough. I think this is incredibly valuable, and most people do not actually use this part of their face, and in doing so, it actually shapes how their face looks, and not necessarily always in a good way either. So first off, when you are chewing any sort of food, it's really important to not just always use your back teeth. And most people, they use their back teeth all the time when they're chewing. And the problem is you're not always supposed to use your back teeth. You're also supposed to use your front teeth as well. And you might say, well, how do I use my front teeth when I'm chewing? What do I eat then? And in the Real Nutrition Science playlist, if you do check it out, meat is one of the things where you can eat and basically chew with your front teeth. Now, when you are doing this, though, it is important that when you're eating the meat, you're most likely actually going to have to use your hands, sadly. You can't use forks. I know, crazy, who would have thought, right? But yeah, humans, I don't think we're designed to eat with forks, and because of that, that actually does affect how our face does develop a little bit more. But regardless, when you're chewing, you want to be chewing like this, and then pulling like this. You want to be using the incisors as much as you can, as well as the molars back here. So the incisors and the molars you want to be using, and your canines, you want to be using basically all of your teeth. And the more of your teeth that you do incorporate while you are growing up and during adolescence and you're using, the better your face, or the more attractive your face will be, more so because you are able to actually stretch out the mouth more as you're growing up, and you're putting more pressure on the mouth, and also not getting malocclusion as well, which is another really big thing. So yeah, anyways, that's a really important one. Anyways, back to the video. Now, the real conflict, though, in today's day and age, is biologically humans are designed for polygyny and practice it for quite a long time. And just because you suddenly wipe it out for about 100 years, or maybe even less than that, it doesn't mean that it just vanishes out of human biology. And human biology and genetics and the way you think and the way you act are, most of it is definitely subconscious behavior, and this is especially one of them. And just to give you an example of how humans today are still designed like this, ask any man, and the overwhelming majority of men wouldn't mind sex with another female even if they are married. And women always are looking for the best partner. They seem to go for men who already have other women who are interested in them, which is otherwise known as mate poaching or pre-selection. You can call it one of the two. Now, women and men both are designed biologically to lean in this direction, but consciously we can override these decisions and these actions. And this is an example of conscious thinking versus subconscious thinking. This subconscious thinking is a majority of your life, and you don't realize it, but a majority of your life will be dictated by subconscious thinking, and you will have conscious thoughts basically every now and then. But what you're doing for the most part in everyday life, especially if you're going to school and you're going through that process, that's all subconscious thinking. You're not really consciously going through school, because if you do, it's incredibly exhausting. It's very, very exhausting. So that's one thing. Another thing is the unconscious thinking can be something like randomly being attracted to another woman when you already clearly have a wife, or a woman finding another man more attractive than her husband. That's another example. Like, it's you can't just override biology, okay? It's just the way it is. Now, when it comes to you biologically basically overriding your subconscious thoughts, it's exactly why there's that gnawing feeling in the back of your head where you think of things that you shouldn't be doing, and then you go, I'm not going to do that anyways. And you do something that you know that you should be doing. Yeah, that's just your conscious overriding your subconscious in most cases, and basically overriding your biology by consciously making the action to go against your subconscious behavior. And in this case, your subconscious behavior would be, I find this other woman attractive, even though consciously, because humans luckily are smart enough today to realize, oh, this can come with consequences, and there are consequences to your actions, as an example. Now, this is where the erosion of society comes at a cost in today's day and age, especially. Now, with the erosion of the essential pillars of society crumbling, the previous dynamic of monogamy that used to exist today and sort of is crumbling in some sense is definitely fading, and we can see clear instances of this today. Now, there are a couple of essential pillars to society and civilization, which I talk about in other videos if you're really interested, but the more of these essential pillars that slowly do fade and erode away, because we can see clear examples of these. One great example would be family, one would be education, and one is religion. Yes, religion is an essential pillar. And the more of these that fade away, the more humans will revert back to biological coding, in this case, polygyny. Now, family, economy, and religion are just examples of three pillars which are basically stabilizing society, but all three of these things are eroding away. And just to give you an example of family, for instance, and of family eroding away specifically, is single parent households. This is a incredibly clear demonstration of family eroding. And if you don't know why single parent households are really bad, you should go check out that video. But to keep it really short, kids basically end up screwed up in the long run, especially mentally. The second is the economy. Now, obviously, in today's day and age, I hope we all kind of can agree the economy is pretty bad right now, or it's definitely looks like it's heading in that direction where there is a lot more unevenness in society. And the more unevenness there is, well, obviously, the more this opens up the opportunity for polygyny. And the third one is religion. Yes, religion is a essential pillar to stabilize society. And one of the main reasons why is because, once again, I said it acts as a magnitude, or basically a vector force, and it shoots you further in one direction. So let's say that you just, as an example, value family and you value love and caring for other people. Well, religion only amplifies this times 10, and you get shot in that direction even further. And the same thing applies to a pseudo-religion like wokeness, where if you believe that somebody does not agree with your thoughts and your ideas, then, well, you take the extreme measure towards it and you shoot in that direction physically, like as in a literal sense, not in a good way. And I really wouldn't recommend that. But sadly, this is a really good example, 3 great examples of society eroding today. Once again, made up videos about all of those. Go check those out if you're interested. And there's a very good quote that comes with this. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. This quote implies that good intentions simply are not enough. Logic and reasoning must also be applied. And this is incredibly important when it comes to stabilizing society as a whole and understanding human nature, because I don't think people realize why religion actually exists, and it's an incredibly important reason. And the problem is that if you don't really have that reason for them, they're much more likely to go down a pessimistic, nihilistic sort of view rather than an optimistic, nihilistic sort of view, which most people can't handle. The optimistic, nihilistic sort of view, they handle the pessimistic one much better because it just comes naturally. People who go through depression feel like life is meaningless. That's a really great example. And as I said before, religion is eroding as science advances more and more, and of meaning starts to fade away. Eventually, a pseudo-religion will kick in some way or another. Some people have to have meaning for something. People have to have a meaning to life. Now, as I mentioned before, with all of those examples to show you of today's society eroding, this also means that society slowly is reverting back to polygyny, indirectly through something called, we might have all heard it before, open relationships and polyamory, and also divorces as well, because people will just divorce and then hook up with somebody else in the process. So this has always existed in human history, and you can't really stop it. That's just the way it is, and that's human biology. The only way to stop it is using pillars of society to stabilize it, and those are crumbling. So it's not really going to work right now, it looks like. Now, how exactly could this be applied to the modern world? Now, in today's day and age, the Western world does not practice polygyny the usual way, for instance, having multiple wives. However, there is some form of it being practiced, even though it's not explicitly having wives in this case. Now, one example, which is a extremely controversial one, is a woman basically getting a child from another man and then having another man raise that child, which is becoming very common today. And you can hear a lot of people being against the tests for whether or not the child is actually the man's, paternity tests. So that's just one example. There's many other examples. Now, obviously, if we didn't already know, women are looking for a more pre-selected man than the one they are currently with, if they are unsatisfied with him and him demonstrating masculinity, which most of them don't, so they especially will be, while men are looking at multiple mating options at once, or in most cases today, any option they can get, because they can usually get nothing because of how dramatic it's becoming and how, in my opinion, feminine men are coming. And as you can see right here, we have a desert. It's dry. This needs water. It's thirsty. That's men today. Not good. Now, this is inevitable, but it doesn't mean that you can't use it to your advantage in some way or another. Now, as a woman, if you are interested, then show some signs of interest and saying, hey, I'm interested in this guy, because that's usually how the mating ritual goes. Whereas if you are a man, then you have to be the one demonstrating pre-selection and waiting for those signs of interest. Once again, this is just the way the mating ritual goes, and sadly, it isn't taught today. I don't really know why. Sort of strange. Now, this is where my relationship playlist exists, and it will teach you everything that you need to know about this topic. And once again, I should probably be charging hundreds of dollars for this information, but I am giving it for free because I genuinely think that society is headed in a pretty bad way. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, it's just better to honestly teach this as much as I possibly can, and hopefully the word gets spread out, because this is really valuable. And my entire channel, by the way, is meant to teach you everything that you should have been taught in life earlier and you weren't, and you were basically lied to in some way or another, or it's just complicating and perplexing because of so many false narratives always going about. There's many examples of this, one of which could be maybe biology today being completely wrong in so many ways. An example could be hygiene, or maybe what you eat right now. Another example could be government. An example could be relationships, as I've recently mentioned. Physics, well, this one's a little more specific if you're interested in the realm of physics. There's plenty of things my channel teaches. So once again, go check out all of my playlists. You will learn so much from them. Invaluable information. All of it's for free as well. The only difference is members get to see my videos ahead of time before they come out, but all of my videos will always be free. So once again, thanks for watching. If you found the video helpful or informative, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below because it really does help the channel grow. And if you're interested in seeing all of my videos ahead of time, once again, become a member. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comments down below. Please, I answer comments and questions almost all the time. If you have any content requests, then once again, go leave them down in the comments down below. If you have anybody that you want me to react to in particular or talk about, or yeah, any sort of thing like that, once again, all in the comments. So leave it in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Hope you found the video helpful, informative, and valuable, because I'm really trying to put society in a better direction, not a destabilizing direction. And I'll see you guys in the next one.